Today we're going to learn how to sketch some polygons with specific dimensions. And so the way we do this is we make a table to help us decide what the dimensions of the polygons should be. So for example, if you were asked to sketch a polygon with an area of 24 square units, first thing you would do, and the first thing you should always do, is write down the formula. So I've written here area equals the length times the width. The next thing you're going to do is find different numbers that when multiplied together will equal 24. I always start with the easiest, which is 1. So you could draw a rectangle that was 1 by 24. Next, 2. 2 and 12. So yes, you could draw a rectangle that was 2 by 12. Is 3. Does 3 go into 24 evenly? Yes, it does. 3 and 8. What about 4? Is 24 divisible by 4? Yes, it is. 6. Is it divisible by 5? No. And then we're back to 6 again. So these are the possibilities. So your next step would be to go to your grid paper and sketch these polygons. A 1 by 24 polygon would look long and skinny like this, right? Now that was a terrible drawing, but you get the idea. So you're going to use your grid paper. You can count the squares on your grid. I know that they're not centimeters, and this says units, so we're just going to use the units of the grid paper. So you're going to draw a 1 by 24, then a 2 by 12, then a 3 by 8, and then a 4 by 6. Now, what if you were asked to draw a triangle? Well, the formula for triangle is different, so we have to think carefully before we do it. If you were asked to make a triangle with an area of 25 square units, first thing you always do is write down the formula. The area of a triangle is the base times the height divided by 2. This tells us that the base and the height need to equal something that when it gets divided by 2, it will be 25 square units. So that tells us that these two numbers multiplied together need to equal 50 because it's then going to be split in half and equal 25. So again, let's start with some simple things that would be 50. You could do 5 and 10. You could do 25 and 2. You could do 1 and 50. Now the next step would be to actually draw these triangles. So these could be reversed. So your base could be 10 and your height could be 5. It would look very different. If you had a base of 5, let me just choose the line tool here so I can draw better. Let's say you had a base of 5. So on your grid paper, you're going to do a base of 5. And then you're going to do a height of 10. So you'll count up 10 squares on your grid paper. Okay. Then you will have, oops, what's happening here? Pick my line again. You're going to have a very tall triangle like this. But if you reversed it and you had a base of 10, so your base is the longer side, and your height was 5, then your triangle is going to look very different. So those are two different triangles. So this is a 5 by 10, and this is a 10 by 5. Keep in mind that when you're working with triangles, the base and the height should not equal 25. They should equal double that. They should equal double the area because they are going to get split in half. The next thing we're going to talk about is perimeter. So if you are asked to draw a rectangle with a certain perimeter, so let's say, here's our example, you're asked to draw a rectangle with a perimeter of 12 units, first thing you do is write down the formula. The perimeter of a rectangle is equal to the shorter side, so this side here, plus the longer side times 2, because these are the same, right? So if you know this one and this one, you know that one and that one. So let's figure out some things that would equal 12 not square, just 12 units, because perimeter is just units, not squared. They're just the lines going around the outside. So the shorter side plus the longer side times 2 is going to equal 12. So that tells us that in these brackets, it needs to equal 6 because we're going to multiply it by 2 and it will equal 12. So what could we do? We could do 1. Oops, I'm still on my line tool. Sorry. We could do 1 and 5, short side plus the long side. We could do 2 and 4. We could do 3 and 3, and then we're done. So let's look at what these would look like. You're going to go to your grid paper and you're going to draw something, a rectangle with a perimeter of 12. So your first one, it might look like this, a 1 by 5. It's going to be long, and the next one, the shorter side, is going to be 2. So it's going to be a little longer, and it's going to be by 4. So it's going to be a little shorter. And you can see that these would have a perimeter of 12 because 1 plus 5 is 6, plus another 1 is 7, plus another 5 is 12. So then you would have your proper figures. I do expect to see a table for each of these questions. So every question needs a table with a list. Let's look at triangle. If you are told to make a triangle with a perimeter of a certain number, so in this case it's 22, you're going to do side plus side plus side. But keep in mind, this happened last time where some people were putting numbers that really wouldn't work if you tried to make them a triangle. So let's look. If you put, oh sorry, I'm choosing the wrong thing. I'm a little off today. If you said the first side was 1, the next side was 2, and the third side was 19. Let's just think about that for a minute. Could you draw a triangle like that? Well, let's just pretend that this is grid paper. So let's say we had 1 centimeter here, 2 centimeters here, and 19 centimeters here. Would that close up as a triangle? No, that would not work as a triangle. So you need to pick numbers that are closer together. So what I would do is split this in 3, and it's about 7. And we could then just pick numbers that would equal 22. So let's just say 7, 7. That brings us to 14. And the next side would have to be 8. Would that work as a triangle? Yes. The good thing about this is that you will be drawing these triangles. So if you did pick some numbers that didn't work, you would see that it didn't work because you would have to actually draw the triangle. Let's pick something else. What if we did 6 and 7? So that's 13 and 9. Would that work? Sure. So you're going to just keep doing different things that would equal 22. Keeping the numbers pretty close together. We would never use a 1 or a 2 because your triangle will not close. So once you have your table, you can then go to your grid paper and you can draw these things. Keeping in mind, when the textbook says centimeters, I will just allow you to use the grid paper and we'll do it in units. So if it asks you to draw a triangle with a perimeter of 22 centimeters, just go ahead and use the grid paper and do 7, 7, and 8. If you want to use centimeters, you can, but it might take up a lot of space on your page. So it's up to you which way you want to do it. Just keep in mind the different formulas. So I'm just going to go back to the first. If it's the area of a rectangle, you're going to write down length times width and make a table. If it's the area of a triangle, you're going to write the formula. Base times the height divided by 2. Then you're going to make a table. If they're asking for the perimeter, keep in mind perimeter is just adding the sides up you're going to write the formula, shorter side plus the longer side times 2. And finally, perimeter of a triangle, same thing. Make a table showing me and keeping the numbers fairly close together. Hopefully that's helpful. You can go ahead and complete lesson 9 in your textbook. You will find the questions on page 372.